I'm Brent Leary.
Paul Greenberg.
Yeah, we're the CRM Players. I just thought I'd check, and it is Friday, so you have to excuse the intrusion. We're talking sports.
Don't we have to do like a 10-second freeze before we say we're CRM players too?
Okay, let's do that. I'll show you how we're going to do that. Starting
All
right now.
right. That's perfect.
There it
God,
is,
I can't
folks.
look. I have a hard time looking at myself for that one. So
Oh,
heavy.
that was like what 10 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah, 62 pounds ago.
You're not the man you used to be.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Well, it's another Friday. It's sports talk, and quite honestly, we don't have a whole lot to talk about right now. But there is something really interesting that happened today, and let me see if I could do this and do this. This is pretty big news. The Miami Marlins hire the very first female general manager in Major League Baseball. Big
Yeah,
news.
I think if I'm correct, I know I'm correct about one thing, and then maybe not about the other one, but I think I am. She used to be which I am right about. She used to be the assistant general manager for the Yankees. I remembered it when I saw her name, but the other thing I think I remember is that she came into executive positions as one of the first two females in the history of major sports to be one, a senior executive. And the other one at the time was our friend Christine Stoffel. I think it was Kim Ng and Christine Stoffel were the two who came in at executive positions back in if it's at the same time, if I'm right, it would be around 2007 or so, 2006, 2007, something like that. So she's associated with Christine, who I'm sure she knows. Christine ran IT for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
So, how big of a deal is this right now?
Oh, it's gigantic. I mean, look, you see, you've seen, uh, let's call it a significant sprinkling, but a sprinkling of women in executive positions in major sports. But this is somebody who's basically running a team, and
Right.
and is responsible sort of for both ops and day to day. Oh, not day to day. That's the manager, but the let's say the overarching uh, activities the team itself has. So and since I watch Brian Cashman all the time, she's going to be responsible for deciding who gets paid what, for and who's going to be brought to the Marlins. In addition, though, she's interfacing with all the ops people on the team to help support and run the operation. So this is huge, and it's another. This is a I'll call it, if you want to use the cliched version, a glass ceiling broken. It really is. I mean, what do you think?
Isn't it kind of ironic that the same, well, time period, basically, that we have the very first woman as a vice president elect, so she will be the next vice president, Kamala Harris, that this kind of comes on the heels of that. I wonder if she was probably very worthy of having this distinction well before now. But I'm just curious to know if having the very first vice president elect female, I wonder if that had any bearings on having this happen right now.
That's actually a really interesting question. I don't know, but I'll say that I'll tell you what. If it did, that means that we're going to see. I'll put it this way: get out the brooms, get out the whatever those things are that you sweep things
Sweet.
into. No, that you actually sweep the
Like the dustpan or something.
dustpan. Thank you. Get out the brooms, get out the dustpans, because a lot of glass ceilings can get broken if this is an indicator, right?
I
As,
I think that'd be great. Actually, it's about time, really. You know,
yeah,
but
I
I'm
mean,
just curious. It just feels like it does. It feels like it has to be more than a coincidence that we get the very first female vice president and then the next week, a professional sports team hires a woman as a GM. I hope there is some kind of correlation, because that, like you said, that means we should be seeing a lot more first.
Which fingers crossed that we do, because it's ridiculous that so many exceptionally capable people are being kept out due to gender, which is so just stupid.
But think
I
about
mean,
this: there's a connection. There's a Yankee connection, because as you said, she spent some time in the Yankees organization. But guess who's the guy calling the shots in Miami?
oh, Mattingly, that's right.
Well, and above
Oh,
him,
and the owner, the owner, of course. When I thinking Jeter,
so you can
holy
actually
well,
take some credit here, because this is a
yeah,
Yankee move here.
I did it. I'm so proud of myself. I am so proud of myself.
all those calls, the Jeter actually paid off, man.
That's right, Derek. Thanks for listening.
No, I think this is really long overdue. We'll see what happens in, like, I think football. I would have thought this would have happened in the NBA before it happened in Major League Baseball.
Well, I don't know. Baseball has done a, I mean, again, we go back to our friend, we go back to Christine. I mean, she was she was the first, to my knowledge, anyway, the first C-level executive, female C-level executive in any sport, and it was baseball. It was the Diamondbacks, right? So, um, I'm not terribly surprised it's baseball. I mean, baseball also has even if it's not currently the most popular, it's got the deepest roots in America too. So it's had the longest history too. So it's had time to mature, let's just say, and plus there's a lot of money there, and there's like a lot of money, and arguably there's probably more money to hand out than any other sport. So the attraction would be a little bit strong too. It's just it comes at a time too where the teams are pretty much on the one hand, from the standpoint of the free agent market, you're getting all these discussions about, well, no one's going to get the payout they expect because the teams all lost a lot of money during this year. And then on the other hand, sometimes a half of the staff of the business staff of the team is being laid off, which is criminal. And or if they're not being laid off, they're taking significant pay cuts. I don't know what the Marlins are doing on that, but I know the Yankees, to their great credit, have not. I mean, other than I assume some layoffs here and there, but they haven't really had any layoffs, and they haven't cut any pay. To my latest report, I know, and yet they've lost probably billions, in the course of this. So the fact that they're taking this, I'd love to call it a brave move, but it's not. She's capable. She knows how to run it. She's had, not only is she a competent, capable human being, but she's had experience as an assistant GM. You're not dealing
Right.
with a rookie here who's being hired because she's a woman. You're getting someone who's being hired because she can do the job, right? And that, because she is a woman, she becomes the the glass ceiling breaker, but she's capable of this. And I do know this from what I understood from, and this is discussions that go back a little bit. She was good with the Yankees too. She did a really good job, and she was well regarded there.
I
So
wonder if, and this goes beyond hiring, but because we know she didn't play in the major leagues. I wonder if the continual perpetual move towards sabermetrics and data, does it allow for more openings of this nature than kind of the old going on your gut, kind of trusting your instincts, or hiring somebody who knew the game because they played it? I wonder if now that we're in more of an age of trusting data than more than trusting your gut, does this make it more accessible and more and easier for people who were not traditionally seen as part of the game to get into these kind of positions?
That's actually a really good question. I will say this: you remember what Paul Sweeney said yesterday about looking at behaviors um,
Yeah.
on voice? So kind of, I think the answer is yes to what you're saying, but not exactly that. Okay, and this is what I think: the new data-driven world of baseball, the sabermetrics, et cetera, occurred because of new, a younger, let's say more aligned with current universe personality type getting into management positions in baseball, right? Meaning
That we're
somebody
talking like,
authorized it.
is that like the Billy Bean was the start of this stuff, or is it even
Yeah,
before
I
him?
mean that
Or
type of thing. Yeah, his was a flawed system, I think, but yeah. And Bill James going to work for the Red Sox and things like that. I mean, it's not that they're young. Neither of those guys are that young. They're what, 50s by now, I imagine. But they were new wave, right? But it also, those kind of people, there's a lot of them in sports world now. Like at every level of a team in the business side, you're going to run across those people, and almost every team in the world. And so um, the gut decision are the old school. There's no crying in baseball type of people, right? I mean, part of it's their just personality type, really. And I think the fact that you have people who understand in a much better way that, yeah, of course, women are part of sports. I mean, look, the thing about it, there's still no women who actually play baseball or play football, and especially in baseball, other than how you have to handle the locker room a bit. What's stopping it, really?
yeah,
Right? Why
there
would
should, yeah, there shouldn't have been. You shouldn't have to play the game to be able to be a good GM. I mean, some of these the best GMs didn't. Like I'm thinking like in football, like Charlie Casserly. I don't think he was a player. Did he play?
no,
I mean,
no, I
or
don't think so.
the guy that was I, did Bill Walsh ever play? I only
Uh,
knew him as a coach.
Me, that's all I ever knew about him too. I
And
don't think he ever played.
did Belichick play?
Oh, I don't
Maybe in
care.
high school or something. Yeah, I know. How did I? Why did I pull him out of
Why
there?
bring him up? Yeah. Well, but
Uh,
Brian Cashman didn't play. What's his name? Theo Epstein didn't play. They
yeah,
were not
they
major
were like
leaguers.
the first disciples, first generation disciples of the like the Billy Beans, right? Those kind and
Yeah,
the
I mean,
Deep
they
Podestas
were
and all
good
that.
at understanding the balance between making you know decisions emotionally and using
Data
data to
driven decisions.
justify.
Yeah,
Right, they figured it out, and it's why they both are terrific GMs. But also, there's no barrier for there shouldn't be, even on the player side in baseball. What's the barrier for a woman to play? Why is there one even there? Why haven't women played really?
yeah.
This, I
I
mean,
don't know.
I'm sure you can find. What was her name? That Jenny, the softball one.
Oh, I know. Yeah, yeah.
Jenny
Can't remember her
Finch.
last name. Yeah,
Finch.
Finch. Jenny Finch.
Yeah,
Finch. Yeah.
she struck out an awful lot of major leaguers. Of course, look, there is a difference in softball and baseball. There's no question, but her talent level was very, very high. Again, I don't know if she was a major league baseball level player, but there really is nothing that other than tradition standing in the way of a woman playing at least baseball. What would have to happen? You have to change the locker room around a bit. That's it, really.
I
I mean, what else?
remember.
What else was standing in the way?
I remember. I was watching this documentary on HBO on the USC women's basketball team in the early to mid '80s with who I think is still the greatest female basketball player of all time, Cheryl Miller. And that USC team, it was like way ahead of its time. It had two of the top five women's basketball players of all time with Cheryl Miller and Cynthia Cooper, and then they also had those twins, McGee twins. Yeah, the McGee twins. But they were kind of going through this documentary. It was based on that team, but it started out talking about like the kind of the early startings of when women's college basketball started to become popular, and they had, I think it was either Nancy Lieberman or it might have been one before her, but I think it was the Phoenix Suns invited her to camp to see if she could make the team. And when you saw her, and she was maybe 5'6", 5'7" at the most,
Right.
in the layup line with these dudes that are like a foot taller than her, it became rather obvious that this was not going to happen. But like baseball, you're right. I mean, it could be you could be a pitcher. I mean, look,
Yeah.
Charlie Huff was throwing what, a knuckleball about 30 miles an hour,
Yeah.
but it was effective. Why couldn't a woman, do that?
Well, she could. I don't doubt it. Look, I mean, ultimately, the speed of the fastball has nothing to do with musculature or frame. It has to do with
Right.
the efficiency of the muscle, right? And there's no reason a woman can't be every bit as efficient as a male when it comes to throwing a baseball or hitting one either. I don't. Maybe the weight behind them, if they're smaller, isn't going to generate maybe the home run power of Aaron Judge because he's 6'7" and 280. But then again, Ozzie Smith couldn't hit like Aaron Judge either, right? So
Right. But he found a way
I
to
don't
be a
see
Hall of Famer.
really maybe again this is just pure speculative fantasy, I imagine. But I mean, Kim Ing it would be interesting to see another ceiling she breaks is she says, well, let's look for some women in the minor, in their leagues and see if we can find someone who might qualify to play in ours over here in Major League Baseball eventually and
So she could
break
be
that
like
barrier.
a Branch Rickey of sorts potentially.
Yeah, and again, it's a barrier that's never been broken. It's only been treated as when people have like talked about it, it's been treated like, oh, how much either what
Like
oh what
gimmicky.
a right, what an aberration. It's really nice, but of course it's not really going to happen. And but I don't know. From my standpoint, I don't see of all the major sports, the least physical barrier is that one, right? Is
Yeah.
baseball, and should be the first to break that barrier to me. And then, it's harder, obviously, for all kinds of social, societal, I guess I'll call it reasons to do it with the NFL and things like that. But because of just the way the societies are shaped, but baseball doesn't have that as a giant issue. It can occasionally get in the way. I can see that happening, but not really in a way that should stop it from happening.
Yeah, so we'll see. We're
I
at a point where the doors are starting to be blown off. With Kamala Harris's election to vice president elect and eventually vice president. But it just seems like this might be a point of delineation. Her getting to that distinction, and now we'll see what happens because this shouldn't be the last of the first, so to speak.
No, and it's interesting. I was watching it was a tweet somebody put out on Kamala um, Harris's election, and there's a line in Hamilton where the woman, the three sisters are in New York, and they're I don't remember which one it was, Angelica maybe, but one of them was um, talking to someone on the street and saying, you know, talking about the Constitution said all men are created equal, and then the line says, and basically I don't remember the exact line, but in the next time, uh, we need to be part of the sequel, right? And this woman said, finally, we're part of the sequel, which is a
Hmm.
really good line. I have to say, it was a really good line, which is, that
Yeah, it is a
finally
good line.
the opportunity is
Finally.
hopefully, yeah, finally. I think you're right. At least that Kamala Harris is going to open up an enormous range of possibilities, and just a matter of how much resistance they meet. When it becomes something more than just occasional.
Right. Well, I give the Yankee extended family credit for doing that.
I'm with you.
And it makes sense that Jeter's the kind of guy. I could see Jeter, yeah,
Yeah, no,
doing that
me too.
kind of.
And Mattingly, Jeter. I mean, it's all good. It's just I'm glad step one has finally happened.
The only question I have is like you just mentioned Jeter and Mattingly. That he's the owner and the head coach. Now, traditionally, the GM is the person that not only picks the players, but the head coach or the manager really is supposed to kind of work under them. I don't see that happening, and that I don't see
No,
that kind of being the relationship. But does it have
I
to
have
be?
no idea. I honestly have no idea what that'll be, but I do know Mattingly won Manager of the Year yesterday. So for the
Nice.
Marlins, well, the Marlins were actually good this year, which is astounding, right? And that's after they got devastated by COVID in the beginning of the season. So, but it's hard to say. I mean, ultimately, if she's assuming the role of GM, then she, like Cashman or Theo or any of the GMs out there, should have a role in the choosing of the coaching staff. I mean, again, she's been around for, like, I think it said 30 years since she started in sports. It was some insanely long. She didn't look
She didn't
like,
look that old.
no, she didn't, and that's why I saw it was a long time though. And so she knows the landscape. She knows the ropes. She knows the players. She knows that, like any other person who's been around sports in a leadership position of some kind for all those years, you're going to know those things. And again, she was an assistant GM, so she learned under Cashman too. So, you know, I don't doubt she'll have some role in picking the coaches, and I don't doubt Mattingly will be okay with it either. Right? He's a pretty good guy, as far as I know. He's not. He was an old school player, but I don't think he's an old school manager.
I keep on thinking about a league of their own and the
Yeah.
role that Tom Hanks played.
Yep.
That's Mattingly, and then this, you know, the female GM comes in, and I'm assuming he had to be completely on board, or
Of
this
course he
probably
was.
wouldn't. Yeah. All right. Well,
I mean,
that's we'll see what happens. We should see more first. I got one though that's not as pleasant or not as positive. Trying to bring this up. We lost another of the greats,
yeah.
the
And one of
Golden Boy.
the man, he was such a personality too. That guy was, it's funny. I think, aside from the fact, I remember watching him play, and I remember watching him kick field goals, run, catch, throw, and punt, right? So, and I
Yeah.
think occasionally he probably played a role on a special team or two also. The guy did everything. He had a gambling issue, obviously, and thus was suspended for a season or
Did
two.
he lose a year? Right, a year.
Yeah, it was a full year. And but he also used to, the thing is, he was glamorous too. He was like a glamorous
Oh, he's
player.
the
He used to
Golden
hang around
Boy. Yeah.
yeah, but he hung around with the Rat Pack too, right? It was, I mean, that was the era that that the entire Sinatra crew, so to speak.
Was that the
Uh,
early '60s or something?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so seeing this today, even though of course my team has always been the Giants, but I used to love those Packers too. And we've lost almost all of them in the last year. Willie Wood and Herb Adderley and him all within this year. None of COVID, just mostly of old age, right? And which is a little scary, I have to admit, right? So uh, you know those are the larger than life football players of Lombardi's teams. And it's very sad to me that those guys all passed this year. All three of them, Wood, Adderley, and Horning, were like players that utterly fascinated me when they were young. When I was young, I just used to love, even when they would play against the Giants in the '62 championship game and stuff like that. Which we lost. Um, it was amazing just to watch them. You just go, whoa! And Adderley, by the way, was a kickoff return specialist too, and I think one year ran back two touchdowns uh,
Wow.
in kickoffs, two kickoffs for touchdowns. And Willie Wood had one year where he took an interception back about for a pick six about 98 yards, and then he ran another one later that year for like 79. And I want to say that was 61 though, not 62. I may be wrong. But the guy could just watching all three of those guys play was just miraculous. And I wish I could get excited as I was then as a young boy watching those guys as I don't get anywhere near as excited watching even the better players now.
Yeah, it's well. I mean, I didn't catch him playing. I was a little came up a little couple of years, I guess, after he was done or something. But I mean, those teams are legendary. I mean, all those guys. Is Jim Taylor still alive, or did he pass away?
I think he passed away, but I maybe I'm going to check literally right now.
I mean, those are teams that you kind of led to the modern, NFL when you think about it.
Yeah, he passed away in 2018 at 80.
Oh, yeah. So just think, you had those two guys in the backfield,
Unbelievable.
and you had Bart Starr at the quarterback. Uh, who was that tight end that caught the touchdowns in the Max something McGee or something like
Max
that?
McGee. Yeah, Max McGee, Jerry Kramer. I mean, not Jerry Kramer. Ron Kramer, Max McGee, Taylor Horning, Bart Starr. There was one other wide receiver.
Wasn't one of those running backs that came out because didn't Jim Taylor leave because he wanted to get paid more money or something like that? And then Emmett, what's that guy's name? He used to be like it was a coach, and I thought I only knew him because he was a coach. And then I was watching all these old NFL films, things. I was like, wait a minute, dude played? I mean, no, or is it Elijah something?
Oh, Elijah Pitts.
Elijah Pitts, that's who it was.
Yeah, he became want to hear a really great story about Elijah Pitts and me?
Yeah.
I'm actually famous for Elijah Pitts. No joke. Yeah, you'll hear this in a second. So just in his history, he became at one point an assistant head coach for the Buffalo Bills. This is when Jim Kelly was, still a quarterback for the Bills. So when I was, I was about 14, there was this. So I don't know how many people know the genesis of the kind of contemporary breed of sports writers, the ones that are kind of snarky, and it actually comes from a group of newspaper writers off of New York they were called the Chipmunks. And it was the most famous of the Chipmunks was a guy named Stan Isaacs. There was several others, but he was the kind of number one guy, and he wrote for Newsday. So when I was a kid, of course, I wanted to be a sports writer, and he was my hero, actually. And I would read his column every day. His column was called Out of Left Field. And what he did, which was different than sports writers of the day, was not only did he cover the sports, but he would cover things like top 10 ice creams in the New York metro area or things like that. He would just kind of throw other things in and rank and rate them. And people loved that. And then he was also one of these guys, kind of like Jim Bouton, because Jim Bouton, in a way, kind of sparked all of that, right, with his book, and so with Ball 4. And so anyway, Isaacs had a huge readership, and it became national over the years. But I used to write to him, and I wrote poems. I wrote really famous poems. So I thought they were like limericks and poems, and he would publish them in his column.
Wow.
Right? I was a published poet at 13. My first one was about Jack Hamilton. It was the Mets relief pitcher who was like 6'9", and he was a spitballer too. But the one that did it was the one I wrote about Elijah Pitts. So Elijah Pitts went to a college called Philander Smith College. So I wrote this poem, and this is how it went. Needless to say, it's blazoned into my brain. It went like this: I have a thought that gives me fits. It bothers me a lot. Philander Smith, Elijah Pitts. Which one went to what? Right? Because both their names were so like ridiculous sounding, right? So I was like, which one went to what? Did Elijah Pitts go to Philander Smith? Did Philander Smith go to Elijah Pitts? I don't know. So Stan Isaacs loved this column. He loved that poem. So he publishes it. And then he starts publishing. That's my second one he's published. And then he publishes a bunch of other ones. And then came the very first Super Bowl, which is actually this, and he had published it a few months before. And when the Super Bowl was there's Green Bay and Kansas City, right? And Elijah Pitts was, of course, a running back for Green Bay. And he republished it, and he called me Left Field's favorite troubadour. And he used to give me like one summer I wrote him a note and he sent me tickets to courtside at the Knicks game and things like that.
Wow.
So, by the way, he died like about 5 years ago, but I was in touch with him from about 10 years ago till he died. All right. And I said, I don't know if you remember me. He said, of course I remember you. I published everything you ever wrote.
Wow.
Right. Well, but then, so here's the Buffalo story. So years later, Buffalo's in the Super Bowl, and the New York Times published an article, and it's about Elijah Pitts. And Elijah Pitts, in the course of this article, starts talking about this poem that somebody had written about him, and that he thought it was this, and he named somebody fairly famous, right, that had written it about him. And my brother actually wrote a letter to the New York Times saying, that guy didn't write the poem. My brother wrote that poem. Right. So I have this like really strong connection to that. But Elijah Pitts knew the poem, right? That poem. Oh, yeah. No, I had a long history as a writer long before all of this stuff. And it was all based on that. So I have that whole Elijah Pitts connection. And it's still one of Yvonne's favorite poems to this day, my wife. Right. And so she says Philander Smith, Elijah Pitts to me all the time. So
wow.
Anyway, that's the, yeah. See, there is a story there, and it's the story that got me actually pretty damn far on that side. It's one of the reasons I wanted to be a sports writer was because of him, Stan Isaacs, and that the Chipmunks were the ones who, and Steve Jacobson was another one of them. You look them up and you'll see they were the new breed sports writers that said you don't have to just parrot what's going on in the locker room. You can talk what you think, and and kind of a lot of the contentiousness between the media and the sports teams due to the fact that those guys did what they did, right? Wow. So there's a whole history with that universe, and of course, really the reason I'm the kind of writer I am is because of them. Because
cool.
I'm that conversation. Well, they were conversational, and they talked to people about things that people wanted to hear, right? And that's as opposed to the things that they were supposed to hear or thought they were supposed to hear. Right? So that's the Elijah Pitts connection I've always had of all things. And he was, by the way, a pretty damn decent running back too.
Yeah, I remember his son is Ron Pitts, and he played too for a little while. I think.
I see now. I didn't even know that. That was his son was Ron Pitts.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah,
so, man,
that's pretty interesting stuff.
All right. Kind of amazing.
We got one more thing, and I'll throw this out there because it just doesn't feel right. Let me see if I can bring this up. Something is going on right now that it just doesn't feel like it should be going on right now. And that is, if I can bring this up. The Masters. Do you know the Masters is going on right now?
Yeah, well, I've been listening to, I listen to Mad Dog Sports Radio with what's his name? The Chris Loudmouth.
Chris Russo or something like that.
Right, Chris Russo. I actually like him, but he drives me crazy. He's so loud, and
his voice just irritates the hell.
It's seriously irritating. But he's not, and he's very clipped. In addition to being loud and grating. Oh, by the way, Alan's coming, and that's the other guy, George Vexey, is the other.
Yeah, I know Peter Vexey, the guy who used to write basketball. He covered basketball.
So that was his son. Peter was.
I thought that was his brother. I think they were brothers. Alan, do you know Peter Vexey was George Vexey's brother? Because I think
George. There might have been a senior and a junior because George Vexey was not my era. Was my era.
Well, see, somebody looked up because I thought maybe there's a George Junior and Senior or something.
Well, my George is this. No, yeah, he is a brother. You're right, because his kids are David and Laura. Wow, I didn't realize Peter was that old.
77.
77. Wow. Son of a gun. No wonder I thought didn't really because George is.
You know what? I just realized he was a lot older than I thought he was. But I realized we hadn't heard a lot from him lately, and now I guess we know why. I guess he's probably in retirement mode.
Yeah, 77, and George is 81, still around though. God bless him. So it's George and Steve Jacobson and Stan Isaacs were the three. Anyway, so
Masters. It doesn't.
Oh yeah,
it feels weird. Masters is supposed to be going on in April. It just
Yeah,
doesn't
I
feel
don't get
right.
this one either. No, and it's weird. Actually, I tried to watch a couple of minutes, and it's hard. It's not like maybe they don't have the crowd sounds down. Maybe the crowds are weird. I don't know. There's something weird about it to me. Look at it.
Yeah, they're even not even they're walking kind of stiff and frozen like I'm just
I
it just
don't
doesn't
know.
feel they
No.
should have just let it they should have just I know it's tough. They should have just waited until next year. I mean, I don't know. It's the Masters just doesn't feel and I'm down here in Atlanta. I haven't heard any talk about it, to be honest with you. And
Well,
usually when it's April, there's a big lead up. I mean, everybody's really thinking about, oh, this Masters time. They should have just waited.
I'm with you. I look. Golf, golf needs to team sports. I get, and a lot of the sports we are seeing now are fall sports. They happen in the fall almost all the time. They run through the summer. They go into the fall. They even go into the winter. But golf is spring and summer, man.
I
Spring
mean,
and
now
early summer.
it is 73 degrees down here, but it just doesn't feel like it's not it just doesn't feel right to have the Masters in November. I don't know. It's just
No, no. Well, I mean, look, was it? Uh, has the Pac-12 season started yet?
I don't know, but they better hurry up because it looks like things are getting ready to shut down from where I'm looking.
Yeah, well, this apparently starting up again at some point. So they voted like, yeah, I know. Well, look, every sport. Look at uh, the college football cases are rising. NFL, the cases are jumping through the roof right now. Everyone's being testing positive. You know,
Even Herm Edwards just tested positive.
yeah. So you're not in a bubble at this point. Pretty dangerous. Because we're in the midst of a massive surge. And it's hard to. I mean, half the states are probably getting ready to lock down again.
I just wonder if they're going to be able to finish the 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 football season. I guess
You saw their plan if they don't
no.
expand the playoffs.
That's the NFL, isn't it? Like they'll go to
Yeah.
16
Oh, you mean
teams.
the college football season? Yeah, the NFL is going to expand the playoffs. I don't
And I
know.
know
I don't know.
I don't think they can have fans in the seats anymore. Like down here, SEC
No.
country, they've been doing that. They've been having limited amount of people in the stands. I don't think they can have any at this point.
You know what? Then none of them are operating from the standpoint of reasonable behavior. So they're all operating from the standpoint of, oh my God, we're losing so much money.
But
Not,
that's
oh
it.
my God, a lot of people are going to die. Right?
Well, but I will say this, at least down here, it's not just the money folks. It's people love football so much that they seem to be willing to put up with sickness and death in order to see their football teams.
Well, good luck to them. That's all I can say. I mean, I
I
look. There's so much utterly moronic behavior around during this pandemic. It's just, I mean, there's a lot of really smart people doing a lot of smart things, and there's a lot of precautions being taken. We know how to handle things better than we did when this all started by a lot, now. And there's a lot, the potential light at the end of the tunnel is starting, some at least possibilities for it are beginning to show. And that's all great. But there are so many people who, in the name of, I don't know what, freedom, right? Or in the name of, I'm not changing my life just because there's a pandemic killing everybody I know. Um, uh, it's just astounding to me how many there are like that. That
it
honestly
really
think
is.
putting a mask on or taking a mask off is matters to your actual freedom.
There's a
Wow.
yeah. I think it's about. I mean, I agree with Bob. It's about money, but I'm telling you, down here at least, I can't speak for everything everywhere else. These people are just rabid SEC football fans, and these aren't people making any money off it. They just love. I mean, it's. I think the SEC is maybe in some ways bigger than the NFL in certain parts of the South, and people that, I mean, some people's whole identity is about their team or the SEC in general, and they want to see football just like the people want to make money off of football. These folks just, that's their identity, and that's kind of hard to fight to a certain extent when they're willing to put their lives on the line to go to a game. That's
Well, then
kind
you
of,
know what though? You tell them as if you're being a responsible university or league, or you're saying, well, we appreciate your absolute loyalty and commitment, but you can't come to games. Sorry. Right. And if you don't like it, then don't root for the team. They're going to still root,
I
no,
mean, they
whether
can't,
they're at
yeah,
the game or not.
because
Right.
you can't blame the team. I
No,
mean,
the
a
person
lot of these
being,
kids want to play. Remember, Justin Fields? He led that petition for Ohio
yeah,
State. It got like 100,000 people to sign. I mean, he wanted to play. He could have. He was saying, "Look, I can come back for another year. There are people that are seniors that will never have this chance again." I mean, I mean, people take some of these sports really maybe a little bit too serious to a certain extent.
I'm with you. Look, because honestly, as much as we appreciate your commitment, Justin Fields, those seniors may never have a life again if they go and play. That's possible, right? They may
That's,
die, right? So that's a lot worse consequence than sitting out your senior year in football. I
and you
guarantee
and
3 years
you
after it happened, you won't care that much anymore. It will
and
be
you
a
would
mild regret.
you would have thought too that if everybody sat out the season, that the NCAA would have probably come up with some rule. All right, we'll extend everybody 1 year of playing. That you, so they don't lose. They wouldn't have lost anything.
And
But
you know what? Even if they did, life will take care of that over time. I mean, time takes care of a lot of stuff like that. There are loads of things I didn't do that I wish I had when I had the opportunity to do it. And guess what? As much as when I think about it, I regret that I didn't. I literally don't lose a minute of sleep over it ever, right? Ever, any of it. And nor will they when they get older. So, you know, I'm sorry, Justin, you're a kid and your brain is not even 100% formed yet. So then I'm sure you're a nice kid and you're certainly a talented football player. But the reality is, you know, I'd rather your buddies stayed alive past their senior year than played out that great year and then died because of it.
yeah, you got to take the look at the big picture here. So we all want certain things and we like to have them as soon as possible, but sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. So.
Well, it's like the equivalent of like saying, you know, we just got word that on December 7th this year, 41, Japanese are going to bomb Pearl Harbor. And someone says, well, yeah, but I've got I've got my book club at Pearl Harbor that day. I'm not going to stop my book club, right? I gotta be there. I have to, and I shop on December. That's my shopping day at Pearl Harbor. The stores at the Army and Navy stores. So I have to go. No, but they're going to bomb Pearl Harbor. Listen, if I don't go, I'm going to. I need this stuff, so I'm going to regret not having it. I said, well, it's literally about the equivalent. I'm not kidding. You're certainly taking your life much into your own hands that way.
Yeah,
So
I know.
the only way you stop somebody from shopping at that store, if they're that adamant, shut the store down for the day. Sorry, we're not opening because we're going to be bombed this morning. It's the same deal. Sorry, we're not open this year because we've got a pandemic out there and we don't have a vaccine, and it's going to kill a lot of people if we keep doing this.
You think about how everybody is saying how bad it's going to be around Thanksgiving and Christmas. They got
Yeah.
football games going on. I hope there's nobody going to these stadiums on those
Well,
days.
again, they need to
Let's just
they
hope.
need to mandate a shutdown. They won't, but they need to.
No, because we have somebody in charge now that is already checked out. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He
That's
doesn't even talk about this stuff anymore. But anyway, this is sports, so we'll leave it at that. It's been a pretty relatively long week anyway.
Yep. Well, we're going to have some things to talk to you about next time. So,
Absolutely.
right, We are looking at some guests next time who you're probably familiar with, but we don't know yet if they can be on that week. So I won't say who, but watch for an announcement during the week. You will be happy about it. And then we have some other things to talk to you about too.
Yep. And so in the meantime, hey, take the rest of the week off.
That's why we're giving you 15 extra minutes of joy and happiness. Go do what you want.
And on that note, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and we are going to do our brand new patented freeze frame taking us out. Here it. Oh, come on. Where is it? I can't even find it. All right.
Come on, you got to take us out.
Here we are. I'm even laughing at that.
So am I.
All right. Here we